Welcome to the Story Selling Podcast, the show that explores the art and science of authentic marketing for purpose-led entrepreneurs. With me, your host and founder of the Story Selling Lab, Rob Drummond. This episode of the Story Selling Podcast is sponsored by my agency, the Story Selling Lab, where I help purpose-led entrepreneurs to generate a consistent flow of great clients using LinkedIn ads without funding the big tech Christmas party. To learn more, head to storyselling.biz. On with the show. About 20 episodes back, I interviewed pro copywriter Roy Furr for the Story Selling Podcast. Roy is an exceptionally good copywriter. He does the copywriting for Perry Marshall and Brian Kurtz, who he's been involved in projects with Brian Kurtz of Boardroom fame. And in that conversation, if you go back to that conversation, we were talking about the differences between problems and symptoms. So a problem is you approaching someone and saying, hey, have you got an email list that you haven't emailed for ages? Then maybe you should. It's a very direct way of stating the problem. Symptoms are more just how problems manifest. So the symptom of having this email list you're never emailing is it's a bit more nuanced in the way you approach it. If you talk about a symptom, it's do you start out with good intentions to write to your email list, but then you open a blank Microsoft Word doc and you just don't know what to write? That's the symptom of how the problem manifests itself. Another example might be that my wife Lindsay we've recently bought a new motorbike. We're both riders. We both ride motorbikes. But while the kids were very small, we had a period of 5-6 years where we didn't have a motorbike, and it was a point of pain every day for both of us. It's like we like the roof above our heads, but we'd also quite like to have a motorbike as well. If you owned a motorbike shop, the most direct way of stating the problem would be, hey, you don't have a motorbike at the moment. Perhaps you should come along to our summer sale or whatever it is. It's a bit of a clunky way of going about it. You could write a message instead talking about saying, hi Rob, when a motorbike drives down your road, do you feel a pang of motorbike envy? Because that was how the problem manifested itself. Bike envy. So, you could write an ad talking about bike envy, and that's immediately going to get my attention because it's like you're looking over my shoulder. It's like, oh, that is how I feel. That's what we're aiming to do in our conversation ads. We're trying to figure out, what are the problems that our ideal clients are facing? Sometimes a client will be aware of those problems and sometimes they won't, but they will be aware of the symptoms of how those problems manifest in their lives at the moment, how they impinge on their day, how they ruin their evenings or cause them to do hours of evening business admin. So thinking about how problems manifest themselves to your clients is a great way of getting their attention at the start of your sponsored message, at the start of your LinkedIn conversation ad. So have a think about symptoms. Sometimes it can help to go and speak to a client. Sometimes it can help to just speak to a few people, of saying, okay, this is the problem that we solve for our clients. In the past, how is this showing up in your life? Could you give me a specific example of how you felt? I think motorbike envy is a great example. There's a difference between the problem itself and you saying what the problem is, and then how the problem shows up in someone's life. And the better you can understand how a problem shows up in someone's life, and the better you can verbalize it, especially if you can name it, like with bike envy. If you can put a name to the symptom, that's going to get you the first yes. And that's what we're trying to do when we open up our conversation ads. We're trying to get the first yes, because that's the first hurdle. It's like, okay, you've interrupted my day. You've shown up with the sponsored message. I kind of want you to go away. But then I read the first sentence and I went, oh, this is addressing a symptom that I actively recognize in my life. And it's got the first nod. So that's the first idea with symptoms. The second idea I want to stress to you more than anything is indirectness. Indirectness is about making sure that you don't patronize the reader. In leading with the problem in the ad, you almost never want to imply that they have the problem. Otherwise, you end up like these Facebook ads. You know, these Facebook ads where people show up in your newsfeed and they're like, hey, 5 years ago, I was, are you dead broke? 5 years ago, I was dead broke too. But then I discovered this simple 5-step system. And for just your email address, you can have my simple 5-step system too. And there's normally a photo with them standing in front of a hired sports car, some beautiful woman, or they're, in a helicopter or something. And it's too obvious because it patronizes me. It makes me feel angry. It says, hey, do you have this problem? It's actually far more nuanced, even if you talk directly about the problem rather than about the symptoms of the problem. It's far more nuanced to say, hi Rob, I'm writing because some of our clients recently have reported that their email open rates are dropping. They don't seem to be getting the same response from their emails. We found in our work that it's because often they're not emailing frequently enough or consistently on the same message. That's what we help our clients do. Would you like to have a quick chat about it? If you pay attention to the opening of that ad that I've just given you as an example, I phrased it by saying some of our clients have reported that we've observed that. I was talking with a client the other day and he said that he'd seen this happening. So you don't want to make it about them. You've got this concept of indirectness where you're talking about the problem, you're implying that it might be relevant, but you're not saying, hey, do you not have a motorbike at the moment? Hey, do you have a pile of dirty dishes in your kitchen? It's too obvious. You need to talk around the problem a little bit more carefully. So be very careful if anything, we want to talk up to them, not talk down to them. And that's the big risk with the problem-led approach, is talking down to them by saying, hey, have you got this problem? And you need to sort your life out. It's quite a simple idea, but once you spot it and once you think about it, every time you open an ad, you want to make them feel good about themselves. So yeah, just be mindful that when you're talking about the problem, it's not that they have it. You're just talking about, I was talking with a client the other day and they told me that their click-through rates on their LinkedIn ads had plummeted recently. We've seen that by using conversation ads, actually the reverse has happened. Would you be interested in downloading our free guide? That's the kind of thing I've seen work in my ads. The third idea I want to leave you with today is this idea of perceptiveness. And I've already alluded to this with the idea of bike envy, where when you talk about it, it's like you're trying to phrase the problem in a way that shows the reader that you have thought about the problem that they're facing much better than they have. You're able to verbalize how the problem manifests itself much better than maybe they've even thought about it themselves. So you're trying to show some deep degree of understanding of the problem that they're facing. And you're showing, have you noticed in your business that the conversion rate on your website has fallen from your about page recently? Perhaps that's just a made up example, but when you talk about the problem, it should be like, to the person reading, it should be like you're standing behind them almost, and it's like, oh, actually, yeah, I have been aware of that, but I've not heard it verbalized in that way, and now you've got my attention. Now I'm interested. Once you've got their attention, then what I'm normally doing in my ads is I'm giving the mechanism in the middle of the ad, saying, oh, well, this is how we do it. This is how we solve this issue for our clients. And then I'm transitioning to the call to action, which is, would you like a free conversation? Would you like a free copy of my template pack? Would you like whatever the lead magnet is that you're offering? And often the lead magnet for many of our conversation ads is just to invite people into the email list. If this is a problem that you're looking to solve, we send out an email every week showing how we've helped our clients solve this issue. Would you like to join the email list? It's completely free. You can unsubscribe anytime. That's the kind of wording that you want to sign off your conversation ad with. So in recap, the 3 ideas that we've covered as it relates to the problem-led email have been symptoms, indirectness, and perceptiveness. And I kind of think in recap that these three ideas all relate to each other just to a degree. By talking about the symptoms of a problem, you're showing a degree of indirectness and perception in how the problems manifest in this person's lives. And you really need to go away and put your thinking cap on of like, of all the clients that you really work with, what problems have they come to you with? What have they said the problem was? And what have they actually experienced? And, often we get into business because we've solved this problem in our own lives. And you can think about how the problem showed up in your own business and what the symptoms of that were. And maybe even what the ramifications of the problem were for the people around you, maybe for your colleagues, maybe for your spouse, or, what were the knock-on effects for other people? What secondary implications did the problem have? Because you can write about that as well. That's another less direct way of introducing the problem and getting the person reading the ad to go, oh, actually, yeah, it is affecting my marketing departments. Or just the other day, my FD was complaining that our LinkedIn ads have been spending too much money. So that's another way of drawing attention to the problem, but doing so in a way that doesn't patronize the reader. I think that the problem-led approach is almost like my workhorse. It's usually the one that I start with for clients. In effect, a lot of the templates in my conversation ad template pack do go from problem to solution. It's just that with the problem-led approach, we're being most direct in calling out the problem. But it is generally the place to start because problems are what generally get people's attention the best. That's what's going to convince them to stop what they're doing and divert a slice of their attention towards your message. And that's the first step in the ad. If you have found this episode helpful, then you'll want to join me next time when we are going to be talking about the purpose-led template, which is a slightly different approach. It's got quite a specific use case, the purpose-led template, but I've seen it work quite well in certain use cases. So we'll talk about that next week. If you're not on the Story Selling Podcast email list, you'll want to make sure you're subscribed for free to receive each episode every week by email. You can do that at storyselling.biz/podcast. When you sign up, you get my LinkedIn conversation ad template and also my lead incubator email sequence blueprint, which is my recommended email sequence that you send people once they've opted into your world. If you don't have a copy of my book, you can get Simple Story Selling either from my website at storyselling.biz/book, or you can find Simple Story Selling by me, Rob Drummond, on Amazon. Finally, if you'd like help with your LinkedIn ads, if this has been interesting, but you know that you don't have the time or skills and you'd rather work with someone that you trust to either set this up or to manage it on an ongoing basis, you can read about that at storyselling.biz/LinkedIn-ads. Thank you as always for listening. If you found this episode helpful, please do give the podcast a rating and review in your favorite podcast app. And I will speak to you next week about the purpose-led template. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Story Selling Podcast, you'll want to make sure you're on my email list. Head to storyselling.biz/podcast, where you can opt in to future episode notifications and also download my lead incubator blueprint. You can also find my book, Simple Story Selling, on Amazon in paperback and Kindle formats. Thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you next time.